the history of desegregation in Washington Street Elementary School, where we went to school at back in the 60s, and some even way back, way before then. I'm at Pebblebrook High School just reminiscing over some of the old times. I believe this is how it was when we came up right there. And look like the front of it is the way it was when we came up through the front of the building. And I can remember coming in that little roundabout right there. And I was thinking about it, education. And y'all, how important education is. Education is very important. Back then, we didn't know why they were doing sit-ins. We didn't know what they were fighting about. But it put a brand in our heads when Dr. King was assassinated, when President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And in my course of time, I may have been a dumb little girl then, but in the civil rights field, I had the opportunity to learn so much. You know how you wonder, well, why is there such a target on education? Getting your education. Education is very important. If you can read, if you can understand what you're reading, okay, you can go a long ways. I wondered in one of my last tapes, I said, I did not understand why we went to Austell Middle School. Now, let me give you the back history. Pebblebrook High School is Pebblebrook now, but that sign used to be Lindley Middle School. This is where I went to school at after Washington Street and Austell Middle School. In between that time, I think we were only at Austell some months. I don't even know if we were there a whole school term. But I do remember coming to Lindley Middle School, which is now over on Pebblebrook Circle, and Pebblebrook High School is over on Old Alabama. This was Lindley Middle School. This is the school that Washington Street actually, and during that time in Georgia, education was being attacked and desegregation came. They asked, could anything come good out of these black schools? Some brilliant brains. Some brilliant brains. I call it a brilliant brain. Rhonda Anderson is now your chief of police for Cobb County. No, she's the chief of the sheriff department of Cobb County. Major Prince. I wrote all the history on these people at our first prayer breakfast. I had to go deep and find their backgrounds. This district, in this district right here down in South Cobb County, there's a police officer named Ulysses Musgrove. He was the first black appointed to this district down here in Mableton, South Cobb County, as a police officer. I'm talking about people that came out of Washington Street Elementary School. That's who I'm talking about, y'all. I'm talking about people that, if they didn't come out of Washington Street, they came out of Lemon Street under uh, the Lemon Street principal, and I know his name, I just can't call his name, know his son, know Miss Catherine, his wife. Okay, that's the school they came from. But I can remember that this is the school they bused us to. This is the school after desegregation. So it makes sense that on the cuff of passing the desegregation laws, because they had to pass those laws, that maybe that's why we had to be at what I call a holding station. Well, you remember what I told you as far as the colored schools. They could only go to so many grades. So if desegregation hadn't have been passed, we probably wouldn't have been able, well, they would have bused us to Lemon Street. They would have had to send us to Marietta. Okay, because I don't believe you could have deprived a child from going all the way through the 12th grade. But in the 5 schools in Cobb County, those elementary schools only went to the 6th grade, 6th or the 7th grade. So maybe the answer to why we went to Austell Elementary School, Austell Middle School, was because we were in a holding stage for them to pass that federal bill to desegregate these schools. So my school, it was Cynthia Beavers, myself, Mary Cater, Marjorie, and I can't remember if there was others with us, but I remember walking in those doors right there, and the front door is just where it was when we walked in it. And many of you read about J.B. Stoner. If you don't remember nothing, you remember when that school was blowed up in Alabama and all those children got killed and Dr. King had to go. Well, that's the J.B. Stoner I'm talking about. I remember when he came, I was just a young girl. And see, I promise you, racism wasn't put in our heads. Okay? We didn't even know what they were talking about when they were talking about black folks couldn't go here or black folks wouldn't go there, couldn't go there. We had enough white good peoples around us that wouldn't even let that stuff go in your head. I promise you. The Bogazans, the Queens, everybody that lived around us, we lived as queens. Okay? So they didn't let us feel that hate. It wasn't until I moved 1 block up and down Pisgah Road, directly in the back of this school, that I literally felt a piece of hate. And that's where they shot into my house, our house, 26 times. That's where my sons and my ex-husband would have been dead at. They were coming after me. I was the one that was working with the NAACP as an executive lady on the Fair Share Committee. And my family didn't even know half the stuff I was working on. My mother was a praying woman. She was fearful and praying my brothers, Lord, don't let Mary get killed. I didn't even know I was walking in a deadly situation. But it was at this school that J.B. Stoner met us here. Governor Lester Maddox met us here at this school right here. in them front doors right there. The police was here. And they came in case of trouble. Because the message and the word had gotten out, those N-word peoples are coming. They had 2 black teachers. They had Miss Scott and they had Mr. Holiday. I believe it was Here for Us. My teacher was Miss Mims. I remember Miss Mims. She came out of over by Westminster School. Miss Griffin was one of the teachers. Miss Griffin taught Virginia. They had those 2. They had a black male and they had a black female. Here for Us. They told us, you're going to be called out of your name sometime. They told us what we would be called. The nigger word. They told us you have to chalk it up. You have to take it and not fight back. Oh, how many times were we called? Now, my daddy was country. You didn't mess with my daddy's 14 children. My daddy didn't have a problem pulling his shotgun on you. Yes, my dad was, my dad. And why I see this bus coming right about here, I can even talk about it for a minute. I'm talking about progress. And I'm talking about people that came out of Washington Street Elementary. Y'all know I worked on that project with Miss Rachel. They said we need a bus in Cobb County. Miss Rachel was the director of getting that bus coming into Cobb, getting buses into Cobb County. The first black bus driver. Give yourself a hand. Pastor Ellaby, Clarence Ellaby. Y'all, that's who the first black bus driver. See, you don't even know our history. I'm talking about black folks that you wonder, could anything come out of here? He drove that bus. He was the first black bus driver. Y'all, Reverend Ellaby is a pastor. Clarence Ellaby. He's on my Facebook too. I'm telling you how to get in touch with him so that they can tell you their stories. I don't know what he went through, but I know they came to Mary Cater in the NAACP. I told you, half the time I didn't know how I got into things. Most of the time they just told me I was going there. You're going to be doing this. Rachel said she needed the bill to be passed to get busing into Cobb County, Georgia. Folks had to get to work. Black folks and white folks poor folks need to work. And so I went to work. I was the only one, Deanne, remember, down here in South Cobb County. I didn't even know Marietta existed. I didn't even know that Mableton was a part of Marietta. I didn't even know Austere was a part of Mableton. I just know that they put us on the bus and say, y'all going to school. So we had 48 black churches in Cobb County. Reverend Davis, B.J. Davis, over in Powder Springs. Reverend Valerie's daddy, down here at Little Bethel, down in that was in the back of the hog pen, where they slaughtered the hogs at. See, we had enough churches in the surrounding area. And you know, to the black children and the black people, you know who the first black school teacher was? Mattie Lou Clowers. Y'all, she was 16 years old. I found her records at Spelman College. 16. Good white people wrote about her in the history of the Mabel House. See, and my boys asked me, they said, Ma, You need to write a book. What do I write a book on? Do I write it when we got the buses in Cobb County and Bishop J.D. Husband let us meet at his church, Hensley Chapel, and Elder Steve Lester, one of the founders of Cobb County, that helped us, Steve, Oscar Freeman, and myself. And see, the men surrounded me because I was the only black woman from down here in South Cobb County. And Miss Willieva helped me a lot. But Mrs. Willieva was almost 90 years old. But honey, she was powerful. You just didn't come out. And people get mad at me when I tell her. Sometimes the church will call me a sinner because I went out into the community to begin to work. But God didn't get mad at me. It was what I was supposed to do. And you all counted a blessing because I never got paid a penny. I don't mean a dime. I mean a penny for all my volunteer work. Not a penny. God opened doors. They needed somebody to get them buses through. I'ma tell you, we went into every black church. Cosy Chapel was the first one that opened the doors down this way. Cosy Chapel Baptist Church. That's why I say I work with anybody. I'm not a Baptist. Holiness. I am holy. I belong to the Church of God in Christ, and I love it. My mother belonged to it, and she loved it, and was a state mother board president under Bishop George Browley. But we did a lot. We did a lot. We signed that first fair share agreement. And I'm just going to go to little bitty spots, and I'm not going to do a lot. But I wanted to tell you about J.B. Stoner. And that front door right there. I always felt weird when I walked in that front door. But I like Pebblebrook. My boys went to Pebblebrook. This is the school that dedicated the yearbook. By the time Virginia graduated, I think Pebblebrook was over here. Because we went to Lindley. I'm not sure if Pebblebrook was here by the 69, 70, or if it was still over on Buckner Road. I'm not positive about it. But Virginia Gale Ward. I'm telling you names that are peoples that are still living. Virginia is the activity coordinator for Dominion Homes Senior Community on Austell, on Mulkey Road in Austell. Can anything good come out of Washington Street Elementary School? Sure it could. Marjorie Beavers went on to be a Honeywell computer operator in banking. Cynthia Beavers went on to work for the mayor of the city of Atlanta. I think Cynthia, I'm not sure if she worked for Maynard Jackson. I know she worked under the administration of one of the lady mayors. Can anything good? These folks are still living. Yes. At least we didn't get blowed up like them children did in Alabama. And I can remember J.B. Stoner. I could see his body, his tall, not humongously tall. I could see little Lester Maddox, little short Governor Lester Maddox in the building right there. Okay, I don't know what it was about this street, Old Alabama. They ought to rename it. They can name it Barnes Street. They can name it whatever. They can name it Thompson Street. But Old Alabama need to be changed. Because we ain't no more Old Alabama. But for some reason, out of South Cobb High School, out of Lemon Street, everywhere they went to put black peoples in the school at, from Washington Street, J.B. Stoner, this was the only school he came to. And I remember that day he came from Alabama all the way up here to protest us going to this school. He didn't even live in our county. What did he come up here for? But I do know that the Klan camp was up Powder Springs way, a little further out. Okay, so maybe that's why he came up this way. But I tell you, we got an education. Thank you, Dr. Betty Gray. Dr. Betty Gray honored my sister right there in that new gymnasium down there, Virginia Gale Ward. They dedicated that book to her. Mayor Clemens, I've already posted that. I'm telling you about good folks. I'm telling you about people that made a difference out of Washington Street Elementary School. I'm telling you about desegregation. That's what I'm telling you about. I'm telling you about the white and the black teachers. Education is important, that you make these students feel welcome and wanted. But now students, you got to act right too. You got to act right too, because I think Clarence was the school campus policeman over here, and he really didn't take no junk. Oh yes, he was a product of Cobb County. Yes, Clarence Webb. I'm talking about the different ones that we keep up with each other, and for whatever reason, the color of public safety, cops, made me their historian, and I never gave it up. A group of police officers, sheriffs, okay, and I never gave it up. And you know what? Now, those same officers that was pulling up the rank, Scott Hamilton, he's an assistant chief of police. Craig Owens, he's the sheriff. Rhonda Anderson, the first female sheriff, and I think the first black sheriff hired in Cobb County. I'm not positive on the first black sheriff, but I know she was the first female. Rhonda Anderson. See, I don't forget you all. Yeah, I remember you all. God has brought us a long ways, from the J.B. Stoners to the security guards to the campus police to the sheriff over the entire county. Progress. That's what I'm talking about. Coming out of Washington Street Elementary, the only school that was completely forgotten. So I do thank you, Mayor Clemens, Councilman Anderson, and Miss Connor, who was a student in 1991 at the Pebblebrook here. Okay, when I speak of the school, I'm talking about when it was Lindley right here. It was Lindley Middle School. Okay, then they switched it over here to Pebblebrook, and they got two Lindley schools now. They got a Lindley 6th grade. There's so many babies. They got a Lindley 6th grade, and they got a Lindley Middle School. Yes, giving you some of the history, telling you some of the names. I'm hoping on the Washington Street page that people are posting, going through their lookabouts and finding the pictures. So when my boys ask me, Ma, you need to write a book. See, I can't write a book because I don't know where to start at. Do I start on Washington Street? Do I start on busing? Do I start on the next school I'm going to take you to and the problems that we had there? Do I start on the biracial council? Do I start on fair share? Oh, yeah. I was the chair of all them groups. Mm-hmm. Do I start on, where do you start? You don't. You just talk about when people want that history. Okay, and hopefully they are just putting it down where they won't forget it. I teach my grandchildren. I take them. Normally they would be with me so that they can learn. And we don't talk race. We don't talk, we talk history. We talk history of my parents' parents. Okay, because there's so many interracial marriages now. It's so many, uh, um, and let me tell you, and I'm going to end on this note. One day a lady stopped my son down the street here at a store. He was sitting in the car and I ran in the store. And I came out and had to be about 9 or 10 years old. Mama, this lady told us to tell you, hey, how are you doing? She knew you. And I said, well, what color was she since you don't know her name? And I said, was she white? He said, no. I said, was she black? He said, no. And so he told me, Mama, she was the color of the inside of my hand. And he pointed to the inside of his hand. And he said, she was that color. You know, the inside of your hand ain't black nor white. It's manila. I just laughed. I couldn't say no more. I said, okay, that's good. Okay, she wasn't black like the color black. She wasn't white like the color white. Uh-huh. And I was thanking my God, yes, that I didn't teach him race. Okay, because the day would come like now. Like then when he was coming up. It was only a few black peoples in their classes. It was only 2 of us, 2 to 4 of us in my class. And there was only one Virginia Gale Ward that she was scared when she marched down that aisle. But she marched down that aisle and she graduated. She went on to First National Bank of Atlanta and worked as a supervisor. She went on and owns many businesses and worked her way